What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today.
What up? Back with some more Wilt Chamberlain content. It's been a while since I visited Wilt, and I was just thinking about him, and I was like, I need to do some more Wilt content. Wilt Chamberlain, for me, is one of the most difficult and nuanced players to evaluate, especially like where it comes to ranking them like all time. He's like the one guy, depending on how I look at it, where I could be like, he's clearly number one. He's the GOAT. And then I could also be, well, given context, I'll put him at number 10. Like, I could go back and forth on reasons why I could put him 1 or I could put him 10. And it depends on how you're evaluating, what's the criteria, how do you value certain things over others. I think that's just what it really comes down to. And like Clayton said, if all you had were record books, right? If all there was record books, the world got destroyed, and then at some point humanity came back and they found some old record books of NBA players. Without question, after going through the record books, most people would probably come to the conclusion that this guy, Wilt Chamberlain, whoever this has got to be the greatest player to ever play, So he just has a very interesting career, and I think really when you talk Wilt Chamberlain, you really have to apply context to a situation and everything. But it's interesting, and he's a very divisive NBA player, is what it sounds like. I mean, there's a lot of people, I hear that they don't even have Wilt Chamberlain in their top 10. And like, even before some of these other players started breaching, they didn't have Wilt Chamberlain in their top 10, and they had their reasons for it. Wilt Chamberlain holds 70 plus NBA records from what I read. Over 70 NBA records, with most of those records being completely untouchable. Like, people will never break some of these records. Including records in scoring, rebounding, and durability. The dude was extremely durable. And then when you take into context, and not just him, but other players of his era, but especially him, and blocks were not counted during his career. So when we look at all these analytics and these efficiency rankings and ratings, Wilt's not even getting a nod for his blocks, and that's a big thing, because the dude cataloged, even though it wasn't cataloged, but he had a lot of block shots, a lot. That would greatly help in his GOAT debate, or just help in any debate when you want to look at statistics and what they're able to do. We all remember him for his 100 points in a single game, and how he got 55 rebounds in a game. And, like I said, he's extremely durable, and he never fouled out. His entire career, he never fouled out at a basketball game. And Wilt Chamberlain, on his career, people be surprised. Yeah, he's only averaging 30.1 points per game on his career. Michael Jordan is the greatest all-time points per game scorer in the NBA. But I promise you this, Wilt Chamberlain would be number 1 in that category for career points per game. He would be number 1. But starting his last 2 years in Philadelphia, he willingly stopped scoring as much. And even in his last year in Philadelphia, he led the league in assists, just to prove to people that he could pass the ball and be an effective playmaker. Because his first, 8 years, he was scoring at a blistering pace. I'll go through the numbers real quick. 37.6, 38.4, 50.4, 50 points per game. 44.8, 36.9, 38.9, 30.1, 33.5. If he hadn't willingly took a backseat started passing more, settled more into a role, especially when he got over to the Los Angeles Lakers, and he had a very good team centered around him and Jerry West. He could have kept up that blistering pace, and he would have remained, because he was the greatest scorer at that time, but he would have remained so through the years to follow, decades to follow. So I'm just saying, man, like his scoring accolades could have even been much greater than they actually were. But you know, I just had to throw that out there. And I think Wilt Chamberlain's, when people talk about like records and things like that, people never bring up Wilt Chamberlain's records. And I think one reason for that is because his records are so astronomical. They're so astronomical. People look at it like it's anomaly. Like it's an anomaly. And it's like, oh, we can't even factor in Wilt because it's Wilt. And people say, oh, the era, and I was like, it's just Wilt. You're not factoring in because it just wouldn't be fair. Like there's just no debate. There's no argument because the numbers are just that overwhelming. It's kind of unfair to him, to be honest. But it is what it is. I've spoke too long. This intro wasn't supposed to be that long, so I doubt the outro will be very long. See? I have to balance it out somehow. But let's get into this. NBA legends explain why Wilt Chamberlain destroyed everyone. All right? Thank you for stopping in.
It seems incredible now to think he averaged 50 points.
Yeah, 25 rebounds. I mean, that's amazing. It's amazing.
Times were different. It was a different
game. Yeah. It was a different game still. You know, 50 points, 25 rebounds. It's 50 points and 25 rebounds. It's a credit to what a physical specimen he was and how talented he was.
I'm glad the three-point line wasn't around for him. But he would have figured that out probably too, so I'm glad I played in this era. Let's put it that way.
Wilt averaged 50 in one season.
Averaged 50 points and 25 rebounds. And then people said that he was selfish. So you know what he did? Went back and led the league in assists.
The winning is only important if you beat the best. My friend Wilt Chamberlain was far and away the best player I've ever played against.
I've never seen anything like that. That's unhuman. What he did and his dominance to get 100 points in one game, and with the physicality that he played with, where people were basically trying to take him out, and they couldn't. He was too strong.
One of the most dominant forces we ever had in our game, along with Shaq. One of the greatest Lakers that ever played a game. 100-point scorer. One of the greatest scorers, rebounders ever. Played this game. Multi-sport dimension type of athlete. Somebody people's never seen someone like that in that era. So just dominant in all walks of life, not only just basketball, but just spirit.
Wilt was unbelievable, man. And people don't really appreciate Wilt, because his teams didn't win, but as an athlete, he was incredible.
Sports Illustrated had a cover and said, "Is Dennis Rodman the best rebounder ever?" And Wilt was so annoyed. And I cleaned it up saying annoyed. So he calls me up and he asked me, did I believe this bleep? And so I said, well, I don't pay attention to that. He says, I had more rebounds a quarter than he had a whole game.
And if you're curious about the record for most rebounds in a single game, the answer is 55 by Wilt Chamberlain against Bill Russell and the Celtics. He was a champion hurdler, a world-class volleyball player. He ran cross-country events and marathons. Wilt Chamberlain was simply larger than life in every way.
The tallest, strongest, highest-scoring man of the NBA. As the all-time high scorer of the league, Wilt sets records every time he plays.
He was the first dominant person of basketball.
There will never be anybody like it. They always say that about Michael. They always say that about other players. But there will never, ever be another Wilt Chamberlain.
Never gonna say who's the greatest of all time. To me, I think that's more for PR and more for selling stories and getting hype. I never played against Wilt Chamberlain. I never played against, Jerry West. To now say that, one's greater than the other is being a little bit, unfair.
I've been watching. We'll give you a couple talks soon, man. All right,
to say who is the greatest, we will never know that. I
mean, in my eye, Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest basketball player.
I played, I guess, 6 years against Wilt Chamberlain. He was a guy that was slow to anger, who was a tremendous athlete, who played under his limitations a lot. With Shaquille didn't have quite the same athleticism that Wilt had. He had the bounce and he had the speed, but he didn't have the endurance. He had a jump hook, whereas Wilt had an array of shots. He had a hook, he had a finger roll, he had a turnaround jump shot.
You had more championships than Wilt.
Yeah, I got more champions, but when it comes to basketball conversations, I'm very arrogant. I only want to hear my name. So when they say who's the most dominant player ever, I want them to say my name. I don't want them to be like, maybe Wilt, maybe Shaq. That don't fly with me. I want them to say Shaq.
Does that really bother you?
Yeah, it does. Because that was my niche. I wasn't going for the greatest player niche. I wasn't going for, the best. I wasn't going for that because those words are just thrown out. Words like most dominant, you got to earn that.
Well, as formidable as Shaq was physically, just stalwart, 300 pounds of steel and agility and athleticism. Wilt was all of that. And I saw him play. I was in grade school and high school. I saw him average 55 points a game. I saw him play a number of times that year. The year he averaged 30 rebounds, I believe it was, a game. I was seeing him play. He got the 100 points against my team, the Knicks. Wilt was incredible.
And he's one of those guys could have played in any era. I think he is the most dominant basketball player of all time.
I'm mad because I wanted to pass him up in points. Now, if I would have passed him up, I would have arrogantly said Shaquille O'Neal is the most dominant player ever. Don't ever ask me the question again. Yeah, I got more rings than him, but he got more 50-point games, he got more rebounds, and he has more points.
LeBron James is going to have his number retired with the Heat and with the Cavs. 3 teams have retired Wilt's number. Just think about that for a second. Shaq, the Heat, the Lakers. Not the Celtics. Not the Cavs. For him to remain so very dominant, he's in a category of his own. That's why I wanted to make sure that every time you hear his name and somebody's shooting after one of his records, we give a little in-depth information about actually why Wilt Chamberlain is one of the top basketball players to ever do it.
Meeting Wilt Chamberlain, it was like seeing someone that you never think you would see, It's like seeing an angel that sometimes you think like, wow, how would you react if you seen an angel? And that's how I was. When I seen him, I totally didn't know what to say or totally didn't know what to do. Here's a guy who scored 100 points and done so much for the game of basketball and sports in general that, here he's giving me tips and pointers on how to better myself. And told me I was a great young man, and I just walked away. I think I said, thank you, Mr. Chamberlain, and walked off, and I'll never forget that day.
We have looked at Wilt Chamberlain like this anomaly, like we sort of made him up. There's no video of when he scored 100 points. Like it's, walking on the moon. He's sort of Neil Armstrong, but we acknowledge Neil Armstrong.
Wilt's 50. Did you feel like that's something he could have done every year?
No, that's special. That's once in a lifetime. In fact, I told him, I said, Wilt, I think I'm the only guy on this planet that knows how really good you are. Because he was smart on top of everything else. He was the smartest guy I played against. When I was a rookie, Wilt was a freshman in Kansas. We played a Sunday game in St. Louis. And he drove to St. Louis from Kansas, picked me up, and we spent the day together on Saturday.
And you'd never met him before that?
No. And nobody knew that we knew each other.
He'd come past my house on Thanksgiving because we played Philly, Boston all the time, sleep in my bed, eat the food, sleep in my bed, and go out there and whip my butt. Understand? And my mother would say, "No, Wilt, we shouldn't feed Bill so well the next time." Whatever. Yeah, well.
I think that if you had to analyze all of the centers who have played the game before, as far as basketball skills are concerned, there's never been anybody to accomplish what Wilt Chamberlain has accomplished, and he was an incredible human being, an incredible physical specimen, and a great athlete. And I don't think anybody will come along who will be able to match the records that Wilt has accomplished.
Why is it that we don't recognize Wilt Chamberlain? When the topic comes up, greatest players of all time, Wilt Chamberlain's name never comes up. Really doesn't. He didn't win enough, but he was going against the Celtics every single year. And we sort of forget that Wilt was dominating.
But when you see Michael Jordan, I'm a product of modern basketball, modern technology. But all the great achievements comes from Oscar Robertson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, all these athletes, all the basketball players way before Michael Jordan. I just got the fruit of the labor, I guess. I learned so much from these guys watching them, and I've kind of gained more of the publicity and more of the notoriety because of me learning from what they have done years way before me.
If you're going to pick a guy, Michael's the greatest two-guard to ever play the game and one of the most exciting players to ever put on a uniform. But to say that he's the greatest player ever and that he was a greater player than Wilt Chamberlain is ludicrous. I mean, it's ludicrous. Wilt Chamberlain was the most dominant and the greatest center to ever play the game, bar none. I mean, I love, you can talk about Kareem and you can talk about Shaq and you talk about Hakeem Olajuwon. There's no one that is close to what Wilt Chamberlain did in his career.
We have forgot about him. And he's one of the most athletic players who's ever played the game. He led the league in assists. He led the league in field goal percentage, led the league in block shots. He led whatever you wanted him to do, he was going to do.
This is why a 6'3" guard like Russell Westbrook is being compared to him for triple doubles. A 6'5" guard like James Harden is being compared to him for the way he scores. And a 7-foot player like Jokic is being compared to him for having triple doubles. Because he's the unstoppable force in the history of basketball. And it's not just dunks. Look at that step back, one leg jump shot. People act like Dirk invented that. Wilt was doing that then.
Finger rolls.
Finger rolls, dunks. He could put up video game numbers.
He is one person that I would say saved the NBA. 1 year he averaged 50 points a game, and people came to see him play. He was such a big giant and an athletic person, blocking shots and rebounding, and just scored 100 points in a game up at Hershey, PA.
Wilt did not use his strength and his bulk, and this is what I'm talking about, a different animal in Shaquille. Wilt shot the fadeaway, Wilt shot a finger roll. Wilt did not go in and bump and dislodge people. That was not his game. So it was a little bit easier to defend against him, and if you remember, the main point is 60% or more of Wilt's shots came on fadeaways. So you had to extend out to get him, not him bumping you back.
If you have one player in NBA history that you could start a team around, who would it be?
It would be Wilt Chamberlain. He's the greatest big man in the history of the game. And you win with big men. And 50 points a game for an entire season, guys. I don't know if people have an idea just how crazy that is.
The records that sort of stand out to me, besides the 100-point game, 48.5 minutes he averaged in a season. Of course, only 48 minutes in the game because he played every minute of every game plus overtime, okay? That is incredible. Also, he never fouled out a game in his entire career. Now, this is a center, by the way. He would go block shots, play defense, and he was smart enough to avoid fouls and stay on the floor.
Yeah, he basically said what I said. Wilt was like an anomaly. I swear, if we didn't have any video footage of Wilt Chamberlain, I feel like a lot of people would not even think this guy was real. No, I'm serious. I'm serious. If no video footage existed to prove the existence of this man, I truly feel like a lot of people would be like, this guy's made up. This guy's fabricated. No one ever did these things. This guy never existed. These are video game numbers. That's like he said, cheat code. No one man averaged 50 points in a basketball game. Unreal. Get out of here. 20 plus rebounds, all this. Yeah, this guy doesn't exist. This is all made up. Hey, that man existed. And I definitely feel like when when Bill Russell brought up the fact that, people were calling Dennis Rodman the greatest rebounder to ever play the game, and then Wilt called him up. Can you believe this shit? I would have felt some type of way too. I would have. All them rebounds he got. Shoot. And I get why people say that about Rodman. When you look at it a certain way, context, his actual size, his knack for getting to the ball at his size and calculating bounces and all that stuff. I get it. But like I said, Wilt's numbers are so stupid that people just avoid talking about him and actually treat him like he doesn't exist and his records and stats and numbers don't exist. Because in a lot of these debates, or when you're comparing the numbers, there just wouldn't be any real argument or comparison because they're overwhelming in many areas. But no. That's my opinion. You guys let me know what you think about it. How do you evaluate Wilt Chamberlain? Where do you have him on your all-time list? And do you agree with a lot of the sentiment that some of these people shared about Wilt and some of the things I said? Or do you disagree? I would love to hear your opinion. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. Catch you on the next one. We out, baby.